Welcome to Larp Academia, and it's cold out there, so I think I'm going to stay with the idea of being inside because it's much warmer. And hey, I'm stuck in this small little room in quarantine like everyone else, so we can all join the crazy together. And in joining the crazy, you need something to occupy yourself. After all, you're bored and you still want to LARP. You still want to do something that will further your LARP experience because it's your hobby. You're passionate about it, and we just talked about how LARP is going to come back stronger than ever and that people are finding things to do as a community. Now, I think one of the best things that we can do as a community is come together and even progress the LARP hobby. There are a few different ways of doing so, like, working on the rules, different yada yada, everything else, maybe making our characters better. But what you can do as an individual is craft. Now, crafting is extremely fun. Now, for crafting, there are generally two types of crafting. You can either craft for fun, or and make it so that you have some cool things for people to see and everything else, or you can craft to try to make yourself have a bit of a better advantage in your LARP. Now, what do I mean by this? I, myself, have crafted quite a few things in my day. Some of the things that I've crafted, most of the things I've crafted are more for practical use in a LARP. And during this quarantine, when you have nothing else to do, this is a great time to give yourself an advantage. For example, let's say you are playing a person who is in the front lines and takes damage, or you just don't want to die in one hit. Crafting armor, like chainmail, is very nice. Now, I have a video of me making this chainmail. I would not recommend making aluminum chain because it just sucks. But unless you have it butted, then maybe. But it's still a long process and something that you can do to give yourself that armor. In addition, some better armor, for example, and some creative armor would be like what I have for my leather greaves. As you can see, it's leather or heavy leather that's been put onto catcher's guards. Now, the problem I would have here, and why I would recommend not to do this, is because these little thingies are an absolute pain to have while running. Catcher's guards are not designed to be used while running, and while it does have a bunch of scratches and everything else, it is extremely cool to have. I even have these little stamps, if you can see them up top. It's, very interesting. So I made my armor look cool, and you can bedazzle your armor. It will probably have a lot of these battle-worn scars on them and scratches and everything else, but it's something interesting. A different option that you can do instead of giving you some advantage is to improve the things you already have. Great example. Let's say that you have an arrow. This is an amp guard arrow, so it's very harsh and hard. You could try to improve your technique. Obviously, I need to, redo my fletching, but you could try to make it so that the arrow flies better. You could take this time to be like, oh, this arrow is a little bit wonky. I want to improve how I make this arrow and make it so that my performance is better. The same thing happened with me and amp guard spell balls. As you can see here, I do have a video on making spell balls, and this was before quarantine, to be fair. But I took the time to try to figure out how to make the most compact and aerodynamic spell balls that are dense enough to where they throw, they fly straight, they fly pretty far, and they're going to be almost unerring to hit their target with a little bit higher speed and velocity. Of course, that led to a problem of me maybe making it too dense, but in that video I kind of talk about that. Now, those are some of the functionality things that will improve your game during LARPing. And if you don't really care about performance, if you're playing a LARP that is more roleplay based and more with that light boffer touches or even no boffer touches, you could work on having ease of life crafting projects. For example, amp guard, we'd have to, tie a strip around us, and it's really annoying. So someone, I'm not going to take credit for this, but someone an amp guard came up with this idea, like a little bungee thing where you can just, there you go, take it, and then give it back to me at the very end. Of course, you get it back 70% of 90% of the time, so that's pretty good. Now, these things make a little bit of an ease of life access, and you can keep doing so with different projects. You can make belt loops, so you could easily holster a sword and take it out. You could just make things a little bit easier for yourself. But what about not on the battlefield? Again, we have roleplay. Roleplay is pretty huge. Well, this tabard was crafted by someone. Not by me, obviously. I have no skills whatsoever with tailoring when it comes to leather, chain, anything that's armor, or anything that's battle-orientated. Yeah, I do have a hand in it. It may not be the highest quality, mind you, but I still have a hand in it. As for threads, no, I do not have any skill whatsoever. One thing I did do for fun, though, is that I play a bard. I play a very traditional drunken bard because when I'm actually drunk, I can sing and recite spells very well. So why not make that archetype go onto the battlefield? Not, being drunk. Don't ever be drunk on the battlefield. But the idea of role-playing a drunken bard. So in doing so, I made my own custom foam mug that I could take onto the battlefield. I have a little harp for it. I also have a little fireball because I like all magic. I love playing a wizard especially, but I do love all the other magic classes, which is why I have, since this one was designed for Amp brown for druid on the bottom, yellow for wizard, blue for the foam on the outside because it's meant to be a bard cup, and red on the top for healer. So it's a magician's drunkard cup. So it's pretty fun to do. However, I would recommend a few tips for you who want to pursue crafting. For example, this has some issues. I already talked about how on Catcher's Guard it's a little bit of a pain to use, and as you can see, there are some missing rivets to it on some parts. Not really that big of a deal since it usually stays, but I made this all on my own without consultation from others. I would not recommend that. I would not recommend making something on your own without consultation from others. And usually the problem that we had before is that to get a hold of those people, it was extremely difficult. And I like crafting. I made a lot of crafting and difficult items that have been watched by other people, especially swords or boffer swords. I've had a lot of people watching me, but with things like leather or chain, I've had to do it all on my own since it's a process that takes a lot of time, and I couldn't really ask a lot of people about where I'm going wrong, show them, or anything else. During this time in plague quarantine madness, you are able to actually ask people, have them respond, and strangely enough, since people are stuck in their homes more, they're more likely to respond, even video chat with you about a LARP crafting project. You are also probably trying to be with the community. They're also trying to find ways to be active with one another because you have LARP buddies, you have LARP friends or you just want to learn about LARPing. So why not use this to make sure that you're able to talk with them, to learn more about the LARP itself. You can also ask and clarify some rules things if you have some questions, like how many points is this armor, etc. And then you could also help people in the future too. So with people helping you, it allows you to help others, and it's just this awesome line of just help that just keeps going around. And with us being stuck in our homes, you are able to get that help, to start that chain of events. Instead of, oh, this was a cool idea, you could say, oh yeah, this is a cool idea, and I got help from this person since I had problems with this part of the process, and make it potentially easier for someone else. Now, again, that's all about the community and making it easier for other people. But for you, my friend, for you, instead of having to wait for some crafting class or hunt down that person who's really good at this, you could just ask them, and they'll be more inclined than ever, since, we're stuck in here, of course, kind of clawing at the walls and stuff, to do something else. And that means that you will be very likely to get the help that you're desperately in need of. And you won't have some shoddy projects like I have. You don't want to be like me with crafting, where people just see it and be like, oh, that's Wizo made. And that's not a good thing. That's usually it's there currently, but I'm concerned. So you want to get someone who actually has a bit more crafting experience, and you don't want to have Wizo quality items. That is how you can get into crafting. Make sure you don't craft Wizo quality items. Help the rest of your LARP community and have something to do in this terrible confined time. Instead of being just stuck in a room and unable to do anything for hours on end, slowly going mad. But for you, my friends, you have the ability to craft things and have a wonderful time. So with that, I hope I helped inspire you to start crafting, give you some examples of different items that you could craft. Maybe your mind's thinking a little bit, maybe I could craft some practical things, or maybe, that'd be cool. Maybe I'd want better garb or threads, whatever you want to call it, and just be more involved in LARPing. Even though we can't do this in person, we can still craft as a LARP community. This has been Wizo, and keep LARPing.